Hi, everybody. We're live again. Searching for Sparks has returned. I'm Tim Motzer. This is season 2, episode 1, and today it's my great pleasure and happiness and honor to bring on Jeremy Carlstedt, who is one of my best friends in the planet, but also one of the greatest drummers on the planet as well. And we've been working together for probably 20 plus years at this point. Lots of projects, and we also share a band called Orion Tango that has 3 albums out, and the latest is The In Between. And today we're going to talk about that and just the playing that we've done, but also Jeremy's great work. He worked with Chico Hamilton, the legendary drummer, for about 10 years, and we'll talk about that and just get into a whole bunch of stuff. So here we go. I'm bringing on Jeremy Carlstedt. Hi, Jeremy.
Yeah.
There you go. Good.
I was playing some theme music for you, but I don't think you could hear it.
You can now if you like.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
That's a nice theme.
What's up, man?
How are you doing?
Man, I'm hanging in there.
Yeah.
Everything's good. You can see my glasses. You can see what I'm seeing. I'm only doing this. I'm not multitasking. I'm not shopping for groceries or anything. Just this.
Well, this is a great place to start. Like, here we are again. It's 2022. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And lots of amazing things going on, but also incredibly frustrating things too, with another surge in COVID that we're all dealing with once again. I just had some dates canceled, and I'm sure you have as well. And kind of wanted to talk starting out about where you're at with all this, and how you're dealing and coping, because it's been 2 years. We haven't actually played together in a long time at this point.
No. I mean, you caught me right before my first self haircut of the next pandemic phase. Like, does Udemy have a barbershop course? Because it's like that, man. I feel like we're going back into that zone, but it's supposed to be lighter. So hopefully that's what it sounds like, according to at least my limited experience with people I know. So that's good, but you never know what's going to happen. That's the thing. So,
well, it seems to be mild, but it's still, as far as the frontline workers, it's super burdening everybody.
just my wife is a frontline worker.
Yeah. So it's a greater strain than ever, I think, in a way, so I'm just watching what's going on. And like in New York, I know they shut down a bunch of subways today because no operators are available because they have COVID. So we're in heavy times, and from what I've read, it's like 6 to 8 weeks we might be through the worst part of this. So
I hope so. I still see people spreading the anti-vax misinformation and claiming that you can take ginger and drink orange juice and be okay. And there's some tough people out there that have checked out from that. So you got to be careful, man. And I'm a type 1 diabetic, so obviously I'm always careful anyway. But it worries me a little bit. My daughter just started school, pre-K, 2 days a week, which is great for her. But my wife's an assistant principal, so we're like, someone's gonna get it in our house.
it's almost inevitable, right?
It is, but we're all triple vaxxed and all that good stuff. So you know what, man, this is. I think we're gonna be okay. But to all those folks that haven't, I'm like, please do it, because even if I don't agree with your politics or anything, I don't want to see anybody get hurt. I'm just not that kind of person.
Absolutely.
So get it, do the right thing. But yeah, so now as far as gigs, like, what do? I had a session I was going to finish up with another project I'm working on, at my home studio. When can we do that? When can you and I do something, which I've been dying to do for,
It's been
a minute.
A few years now.
I'm like, I want to just come down and hit. We were supposed to maybe meet up later this month, and I'm like, on the 29th, I think we were going to come in, and I don't know now. So
Well, I'm going to go heavily masked
Yeah,
because I think it's. I don't know. I agree with you, but at the same time, for this event, as long as we can take precautions and you know take some care with masks and everybody's vaccinated, I think we could be good.
I did that in Chicago. I was just there for the holidays, and I did a session at a really beautiful studio called Jam Deck.
What's it called?
Jam Deck.
All right.
I think International Anthem uses that studio sometimes. It sounds like, and yeah, it was nice. But everyone stayed masked. We had a few moments when we were eating some sandwiches. Took a test when I got back to my in-laws' place, and everything was good so far.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, we did it though. We are like, I was only going to be there a few days, and the bassist, really great bassist named Asberto Acevedo, he put it together, and we've been talking about doing something. He really wanted to record, so we did it, and I'm happy that we did. But it felt a little strange. Everyone felt that way, like the cough suppression. You know, you're like, I don't want to cough. I have bad sinuses, so I'm always like, you might hear me do something, not that often, but it happens sometimes, depending on what day it is. And I'm like holding it in, like, I don't want to concern anybody.
Yeah, it was really wild. In mid-December, like the 13th through the 18th, I did the short tour with Pact, with Percy Jones and Alex Skolnick and Kenny Grohowski, and we had 5 dates and a recording session, and it
Ooh,
was just right before we got it all in, and it was right before they started closing everything down. But while we were out there, it was pretty bizarre to be out and
mhm.
on the road, and we had some close calls with some people that may have been in some of our concerts that were definitely positive, but we all took tests and we got back and we were cool, and we did a
Yeah,
recording session and everybody was, there was a lot of faith going on, that everybody was okay, and so far we've all tested negative and everything's been great. So it felt so good to be playing again, and that's the thing we're all missing so much because it's
yeah.
what we do. And it's like, yeah, we can be home and play solo and stuff, but it's not the same.
It's not, and it's well, I'll say something serious about that, but on a not serious note, our good friend Tim Kennedy, he made a comment on Facebook that said every gig comes with exposure now.
I saw that.
So I find that very funny. There's always an exposure for those that might not know. Like, there's always an exposure joke, like, but you'll get good exposure.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? Can I show up naked to the gig? What does that even mean? But but seriously though, it's like being during the pandemic, I happened right as it was starting to get into a master's program with Ray Anderson.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, really nice. And Ray Anderson is a genius. He's like one of the best educators. I already knew him as one of the best musicians I've ever heard, but as an educator, it really reminds me a lot of Arnie Lawrence. It's very organic. Like, he knows what he's doing, but he wants you to figure out what to do, not here's a set of instructions that will get you through this gig, and what happens with that kind of teaching is you end up pulling out the originality of a musician.
Absolutely.
You figure out what they're really, they might not even known what they wanted to do. And they're like, wow, and that makes them more confident. So, and that benefits the listener, in my opinion, because you have originals. Now you're going to hear something new. Um, but on that note, we did a lot of classes online,
Yeah.
and it was challenging. Like, I had to teach some jazz ensembles, little jazz improv online, trying to play together, trying to like basically do overdub sessions of the class. Like, here, you put your part in there. Let's listen back now.
Yeah.
Ray Anderson, though, he started doing conductions through the chat and Zoom. And that was the hippest thing because we tried all kinds of what did we have going on? Sonobus,
Yeah.
uh,
Yes.
Jack Trip. We tried it, and I'm a computer nerd. Like, this computer I'm talking to you on, I put it together. I love computers since I was little. But man, it wasn't. A couple times you felt like you were playing together, but I don't know what happened. But anyway, Ray was like, let's do conductions through the chat. So who wants to lead this one? Everybody watched the chat. And it actually became really fun. We had some really good times, and I think the performances were better because we weren't trying to count something off, and that's never going to work
Yeah.
online. I mean, maybe one day it will. I hope it does, but not
Yeah.
yet. Ornette Coleman tried it right in that movie. What was it? Is that called Made in America?
Could be.
Yeah, that where he's playing with. I think DiNardo is someone's uptown and someone's downtown, and they did like a video performance with each other. And I wonder what that is. Is radio faster than I don't
No,
know.
no, there's going to be a delay, but I think there's a higher level intranet line that some of the universities and stuff have, but it's not really available to anybody.
It doesn't. I mean, we had this brilliant. I believe she teaches at Stony Brook. Sarah Weaver. Do you know her?
The name's familiar.
She's a composer, and I forget what instrument she plays, but she's an expert on Jack Tripp. And she came in and set us up because she has an orchestra that plays. I believe it's like New York and then Cali. I think Mark Dresser might be in there. So she has figured out a way to make music in that way. But she explained that it's not going to be like. I mean, I was just listening to the meters before we got on, and I'm like, but can we do that? No, like that's the challenge, you know.
Yeah, I'm just during this time solo wise, and I think you are too. We're both in our studios, and just kind of what I've been doing is just cleaning up and putting some new gear in, and just getting back into that headspace of improvising and building and composing and layering tracks and sabotaging and seeing different ways to ignite the spark
Hmm.
of creating music, by yourself,
Yes.
and I was curious what you're doing, like on your end. I mean, I'm supposing that you are doing some recording and stuff down there too.
I had been right before the pandemic. I have this project with Anders Nilsson,
Oh
and
no.
we had just tracked some things here, and we were supposed to finish up, and then this started. We went away for the holidays. It seemed to be getting worse, so I was like, okay, now it might be time to do some solo work.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, I'm thinking. You made me think about something when you were talking about this. Like, as a parent, we have these pods. So you have a pod of parents that you guys kind of like don't you let each other know, hey, I'm gonna go to this pool party, just so you know. So you might want to stay away for a week or whatever. I wonder if musicians should be like, hey, let's make a pod so that we can, depending on how bad this gets, maybe it's over in a couple months. But then we could play together and be like, I know you haven't been out there, in a concert hall with no mask on. It's like
Yeah.
you sort of responsible for each other in that way. And I bet there's some musicians that are like that who just only play with each other. There must be.
Yeah, but also, I know people in Philly who had been doing, at least the home tests daily.
Hmm.
And they were having gigs and they're like, oh, still negative, still negative, still negative, and go do the test and then still not feeling quite right. And they do a PCR and they'd be positive.
Oh,
So, there's, it's like, it's a gamble. Um, I think we have to take our temperatures. If
yeah.
we have a fever, don't go out.
No. And what are you gambling for too? Like if I'm gonna go play a beautiful concert hall and take that chance, maybe. But if it's just a bar gig, and I love those kind of gigs for the intimacy of it and the ability to immediately connect. And you know how it is. It becomes more like the hang with the musicians but those are the situations that make me nervous. So I'm like, well, I'm okay waiting because if there's one thing, I've never been a big practicer, but I'm starting to practice some. I,
Interesting.
I never practiced, I just play, but and my practice is not going to be like the standard, this is how you do it. But I am working on new things. I'm learning piano,
That's great.
taking lessons. I got the Barry Harris. workshop DVD because I need to learn some vibes,
Wow.
and I'm working on my vocals.
You know, Doug's been doing that too. Doug Hurlinger has been shedding.
Barry Harris?
No, he's been shedding vibraphone for the last couple years. You know,
Yeah.
so it's a great place to go, I think, you know.
Yeah, and it could be a later, it could be a MIDI vibe that
Yeah.
I bring on the gig, but it's the one thing I'm excited about is with the Barry Harris thing is that bebop, like Brian Settles always quotes Dexter Gordon, bebop is the music of the future. And I still think there's a lot in there
Oh my.
that
Yeah.
is applicable to what we're doing and what we will do. So I wanted to learn about that music anyway. So on Brian's suggestion, I got this workshop, and it's deep. It's like 3 or 4 DVDs and a workbook.
Wow.
And the way Brian put it to me was that he wished someone had explained jazz to him this way, because
Wow.
it's not as complicated as people try to make it. And
They intellectualize it.
they do. And it's the same with classical music. It's like, here's all the rules to do this.
Yeah.
Whereas, gosh, I wish I could remember the guitar player right now. A guitarist was just telling me he's very well known jazz guitarist. Anyway, his concept was grab a bunch of notes on the left hand, play it. Now try to play a line that's like related to that, And his thing was like developing your ear.
Yeah.
So at the Barry Harris workshop, he's teaching you how to develop lines.
Hmm.
So there's not formulas, and something interesting about 2-5-1, you can't play that. That's not for you to play on a horn or whatever. Those are chords. So you shouldn't play that way. He's just got this whole concept. I'm not gonna even try to explain it, but it's beautiful.
That's really beautiful because, a lot of people that have studied jazz or jazz guitar or whatever, the 2-5-1 obviously is that's it.
Mhm.
That's the building blocks. But there's a lot of players that, just get stuck in that box. And that's not where our heads are and what we're about, And so that sounds like a really great course to check out.
It's beautiful because I come from like Arnie Lawrence teaching me. So
Yeah.
Arnie Lawrence would be like, turn on the radio in class and be like, let's play that. And you're like, okay. And his thing was like, they didn't have real books. You
Yeah.
just learned the tune. He said on the way in, you didn't know the melody. On the way out, you knew the melody.
Yeah.
And that's the way you learned. And I mean, that, your ear is guiding you versus, I've always heard it was better to learn something by ear. You don't forget it. And I really believe that to be true.
That's really great.
You know,
David Torn had a story about Don Cherry when the first time he played with Don, and I think they flew him over to England or something, and he didn't know the tunes. He had been working with this band, and they knew the book, but they didn't know what they were going to play with Don. So Don said, "Come up to my room at midnight." So he came up to his room, and he's like, "Yeah." He goes, "Okay, we're just gonna. Here's the melodies. Here's the first song." And just played the melodies, and they went through. He said, "Yeah, so we'll just deal with those 8 or 9 tunes or whatever it was," and it was just melodies. And David was like, "Okay," that was it. No chords, had to figure it all out. But
that's amazing.
I
Well,
think,
that's the problem is I think people are, it's like, say you put me in a band. I've always done better if someone says, hey, just do what you're hearing.
yeah,
And they try to explain something to me, especially, sometimes they're not a drummer or just got to do this, this, and this. And then you go, okay, I'm trying that because I try to be agreeable.
yeah.
Unless you tell me, can you do something like Elvin Jones or something? If I have to be somebody else, I'm like,
I always
don't
hate,
role-
I always hate that when people do that.
yeah, I mean, I like role playing games, but not music. I don't want to be somebody else. So for me, like, it's always better to do that and just say, hey, you'll hear it. And man, if it doesn't work out, then that may be a group dynamic. You know what I mean? That might not be the individual musicians. Because if you call me to make a hang at the bar, you know who you're going to call. Hey, you want to meet us down there? We're going to hang out. You don't tell the person what to say when they show up. It's going to be a good hang. Have a good conversation. And sometimes it might be awkward. that happens too. But in general, the people that you call, so why not treat your band the same way?
Absolutely. I mean, that's always been, if I had a policy, and that's not the right word, but it's like the idea of getting together with a few people to play, it was always about the chemistry and
Hmm.
let's just see what happens,
Hmm.
never about let's direct it. If there's a tune there, maybe there's some light stuff like, oh, come in at this point or whatever, but generally it's still like do your thing, you know.
Yeah, that's how Chico always would tell us, just play you. He would say, hey, sometimes he might give you a suggestion, but I saw the people that were in his group for the longest, he never told them anything.
Right.
He was telling us stuff to do, but everyone that kind of knew that, like, hey, I just got to do my thing and let the music breathe, listen.
Yeah.
If he's doing something busy, then you do something not busy. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
pretty basic,
Yeah. Yeah.
like it's not supposed to be a we talk over each other situation, and now we can't, I'm talking and you're nodding. Obviously, when we're having a conversation, we have to be silent for each other. But in the music, we can nod with some chords, or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's so conversational and it's
But
so
even
important.
there, it's like create space, right?
I think so. Yeah, lay out. I mean, that was one of the biggest lessons I ever learned was to lay out. And I've been in situations where people are like, "Why did you stop playing?" And I was like, well, I'm letting the music develop a little bit. If we all play together the whole time, then that's just one way to do something.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember being on a rehearsal, and we're rehearsing for the gig, and he kept saying, just wait, don't come in yet. He was off to the side,
Oh, you were
watching
playing
us,
drums on those gigs?
playing drums in the living room. So where he rehearsed over by the UN, penthouse A. And so basically he's like, just don't come in yet. And he kept saying that, and the tune was almost over. Like, and I'm like, what, Chico, when can I come in? He goes, right here. And then I went pop pop, and I played the groove. And man, it was one of the most amazing lessons I ever got. Was like the drummer does not have to play all the time, and when they come in, then it's like, wow, that was perfect. And this is you guys get to do that all the time. Drummers are always okay. Got to play something. I'm good just listening and waiting for a good time for me to come in too. That doesn't happen on every tune, but it can happen. And I think that was something that why he was such a musical genius.
Well, having played with you for so long, one of the things I always notice about you that I love is that it's how you're playing and how you let the music develop. Because sometimes you might play a very, simple figure, but whatever that means, it might be very dynamic and quiet, and you'd be doing something, embroidering something.
Mm.
And at some point in the tune, you're in all the way in, for instance, on the new Orion Tango album, there's quite a few tracks that are like that, and
Mhm.
other tracks where you're just there from the beginning. Fasten your safety belts, ladies and gentlemen.
I learned this stuff from you though, Tim. Like a lot of this, you have to think about, like, one time I was singing, and I think it was for our record that we did, my first record that you produced. And I remember yes, thank you. And I remember thinking, my phrasing, I had spent so much time with Brian Settles, who has one of the most beautiful tenor sounds,
Yeah.
and phrasing concepts that isn't based on running scales.
Yeah.
It's very vocal, and that helped. So, and then you're always building these beautiful soundscapes, like from scratch. You're just like, here, I'm going to make you. You like chili soup? It's like, here, I'm going to make you chili soup in this song. Let me get these onions sauteing. Let me get so. And so I've known you for so long that there has to be an influence there, because I've been playing with you. Just, we all influence each other. So I think some of these concepts of like development come out of from the people I play with. Like
Absolutely. Yeah.
you, man, you're known for that stuff, for building these beautiful. You could do a gig by yourself. I've done some by myself, but man, if you do one, I actually would like to go hear that. Like you don't need anyone else on stage.
Uh, well,
So,
everybody that we work with and know are teachers to us. That's what
mhm.
I found eventually, and we don't actually have to go to a teacher. We have teachers all around us. Our record collections are teachers as well.
Yes.
And the books that we read, there's just so many ways in that influence us and lead us forward. And hopefully evolving. You know, and
It depends on how you're trying to learn, I guess. You know, for us, I feel like we're always looking for something to learn from, and I think that some people maybe just want to learn think of the music as this is music. But I have a friend that just did a piece based on the Radiators just started coming on in New York. He did a piece based on the Radiators. Like that knocking sound.
oh yeah,
He
yeah.
made a track out of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when we think about living in the city, or I think of Miles, because I read a bunch of books about Miles Davis, and he would say, "Yo, yeah, New York City, the traffic sounds, all the sounds of the city
Hmm.
influenced his music." And you can hear that. Of course, you can
Yeah.
hear that. And all the sounds that are around us influence us. But I love the idea of the fact that all of our collaborations help us become better musicians.
Hmm.
And we are learning from one another without a doubt. And this vocabulary that you and I have, or this language, or whatever it is, just this coming together that we've been doing for so long, is always something I look forward to so much and miss so much right now.
Yep. Same here, man.
And I can't wait to see where it is next, because I feel like we're all getting closer to that thing. you know
This brings us to an appreciation, though, I think, going through these experiences of not being able to see each other,
Yeah.
or even that little. I mean, I think it's even going to be more intense now that we got to a little bit. Now it's like, oh, back off a little bit. Because in the end, you really want to have an appreciation when you sit down and make music for the moment.
Yeah.
And now that we're not sure what's happening so much, it makes me sad sometimes, but I also know that once we're through it, people won't take it for granted as much, hopefully.
I hope not. It seems like I was looking at I always take a walk every day around here, just to try to get a little bit of exercise. And I walked by this music shop, this guitar shop near my house, to Pintos, and there was a poster up on the wall from, I guess it was from December, from Union Transfer, and it had all these concerts, and some of them ended up getting canceled near the end, I think, but most of them all happened. They were all, not all, but most were sold out.
Hmm.
I think that was telling me something. People are
Yep,
starving for
they
life.
want to get out there, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean it's been hard because the only I've had a few gigs, but it's not even that things are getting canceled. There aren't even things getting booked
yeah,
at the moment. Like it's just like that.
yeah. Our Iridium gig got canceled for January,
Hmm.
and they're rebooking in March now at Iridium. I don't know if we're going to do this gig or not, but it might be later on in the summer.
I'll be there.
you know. But man, I wanted to ask you a few questions.
Yeah.
One of which that I was thinking about this today, and I don't know that we've ever had this discussion. But uh, what uh, what music was it in your life when you were a youngster that really grabbed your ear and made you go, "Whoa, what's that?" And maybe led you into the idea of becoming a musician or musics? Maybe it's many things.
I do know the answer to this question, and I think about it often. So my dad, who I didn't grow up with, passed a couple years of age. I used to go visit him, and he loved Frank Zappa.
Ah,
So he put the headphones on me, and I'm listening to "Don't Eat the Yellow Snow" as the first thing I ever remember hearing, other than my little Twinkle Star that we actually had my mom record or play for us over the phone for my first record. Remember that little melody, that Twinkle Little Star on Wanda.
yeah.
So my dad got me interested in music because he was like, it sounds like he was kind of an audiophile. So I got my headphones on. I'm listening to very inappropriate for a 4 or 5 year old music. But so after that, we moved to way out in Virginia, out near Natural Bridge. And there was a dude next door that played drums. We had like a duplex kind of place, and we're talking the middle of nowhere. There was a small highway, and all you saw were the mountains nearby. I guess that was Skyline Drive around there,
Hmm.
Shenandoah Valley, gorgeous. So this guy next door, he liked two bands. He liked the Go-Go's and he liked the Police. And I think before that, I actually had heard the Police. So I liked them too. I might have had 2 tapes, Thriller and Synchronicity. But this guy next door was into some music, so he let me play his drums. He had a big, I want to say it was a Tama kit, as was like the early 80s. This should have been about 84 maybe.
All right.
So he let me play his drums. And I really enjoyed playing drums. So my dad sent me the Muppet Babies drum set from Sears. And my mom saved the receipt. I don't have anything from my childhood really, but my mom has a few things that she saved. So she has the receipt. So he mailed that to me, had it mailed to me. And I played those drums so much. I used to go to the library and I get my check out the Police cassettes. And I just practiced to him. And every time I'd hear the guy next door drumming, I would start drumming. So I'm sure I was driving him crazy. He's like, what did I do? So, and I love the drums so much that I remember I had a friend come over to sleep over and he broke my snare drum.
Oh.
And you couldn't really replace these heads. And I don't know what, I just couldn't hang out with him after that. This sleepover is over. I feel bad in retrospect. Now I know you could just go get whatever, but you couldn't change these heads. So that was the first phase where I played drums.
Yeah.
Then there was a time in between where I didn't play drums for a few years. We moved about 30 times growing up. So we finally end up in Texas.
Wow.
And I get a new drum set, and we're probably talking 11 or so, 12. So this is where, but I always thought about the drums. So my dad, once again, gets me another drum set. This time it's a CB700. And they sounded good back then. There was probably like a 70s or 80s CB700. This is probably about 89. So basically I get the drums and my mom gets me tickets to my first concert because I was drumming along to The Who, Pink Floyd, Hendrix, and I think I had a greatest hits of the Grateful Dead.
Nice.
So I could just play like Casey Jones all day, which was a super funky groove. So like I get the drums, we go see The Who at the Astrodome in Houston.
Wow.
Yeah, and Stevie Ray Vaughan opened.
What year was that?
That was the Kids Are All Right tour. So that would have been what, 87, 88?
Could have been, yeah.
Those around there. So Stevie Ray Vaughan opened.
Kenny Jones on drums.
No, Simon Phillips.
Oh, yeah.
And he killed it. I loved his drumming and still do. He's great. And I thought he did a brilliant job with The Who. Like he was really good. So I see, I go to my first concert and I see Pete Townsend jump off the amp on the second tune and sprain his ankle.
Oh.
And I'm like about to cry because I'm like, he went off stage and I came to see him. So his brother was there playing, Simon, right?
Yeah.
He's playing and I'm like, he's not coming back. He comes back with his foot wrapped up. I'm sure they gave him some kind of shot. He's back, man. He played John Entwistle. It was you know how it is, man. Daltrey was like, I got to see everyone but Keith Moon, except I got to see a really good drummer. So amazing. So that kind of like, I think inspired me to like really start playing.
Yeah. I mean, I had a similar experience too. Like when I was 15 or 16, I saw The Who with Keith Moon, actually. That was 1975. It's like second concert I've ever seen. I must have been younger than that, actually. And, and that period of time, those 3 years for me, seeing all those concerts, like The Who and then Pink Floyd, Animals and Zeppelin and Yes. And, a lot of that stuff. It was like, once you went to a concert and you had any inkling of wanting to play, you totally got it at that point. It's like, this is what I want to do.
I totally agree.
How do I sign up for this?
I know, right?
We were playing, but I think probably both of us got more serious about it at that point.
That's what it was. I saw them and then I saw Chicago play. And, some of their tunes were whatever. At the time, I didn't know that wasn't really my kind of music. But they did do that other, what is it, 25 to 6 to 4?
Yeah.
They killed that, man. They went into that. I was like, damn.
Well, that first album by Chicago is quite amazing. It's
Oh, it is, yeah. But they were in that sort of 80s hits.
Yeah, it was
The gated snare drums, you know.
whole different thing.
Now, my first gig though was at my house because my mom's husband at the time, he had a party over there, and there was a band coming to play, and the drummer didn't show up. So he goes, "Oh, my stepson has the drums, he can play." So I played the first tune I ever played on a gig was Black Magic Woman.
Wow.
And I knew it. I had heard it before, and I played it, and they were like, "Damn, he can play." I had been taking lessons, and I took lessons with a really great drummer named Steve Mizamore, who's now he's been Dirk Bentley, the country dude. He's like one of the biggest country people.
All right.
Very, very progressive minded country guy. And somehow I think he's involved with the production of that too. But he was an amazing drummer. He's teaching me like communication breakdown.
Oh, wow.
Like, yeah, he was teaching me all the good stuff. He was a student at Stephen F. Austin University. So I studied with him, and then another guy, I forget his name right now. So I was learning, like, I had the Carmine Appice book. That was the vibe, man. And at that point I had gotten a new drum kit. I got the clinic kit of Terry Bozzio.
All right.
So it was a Remo set, and it had all the drums, man. And I wish I still had it. 3 rag toms, 2 floor toms, 2 bass drums, snare. And so that was like, my first like professional kit.
That's amazing.
Oh, it was great, man. It was, I don't know, my mom's husband got it from some guy really cheap. He bought it at the clinic.
Wow, that's great.
And that was like a really cool drum set. But then that's kind of what got me going, which got me to eventually I was so into drums that when we did show and tell, I brought cymbals in, and I'm in in an area of Texas where there wasn't a whole lot of culture, like way out there in the middle of nowhere, and people didn't even know what I was about. They're like, "Who is this dude?" So I brought my cymbals in, and I kind of did it as a way to make some noise. I knew I could make some noise at school without getting in trouble, because I had my drumsticks. I bring them to typing class. I get in trouble for that. I always have my sticks, and then that got me. That's basically where it all started for me. So I would say it started with those concerts, man.
Right.
Obviously the guy next door playing drums is what put the idea of drums in my head.
Yeah.
But my dad was a concert promoter and really into music, so he was totally down with it.
Wow.
Right. So that was the beginning of it, definitely. The Who, man, and my mom was at my first concert, and we still go see concerts.
That's beautiful that you had that support in your family too.
Yeah, my mom was really cool. There's no expectation for me to do anything. I mean, we didn't have any money, so it wasn't like you need to go do this, this, and this. It was just like what makes you happy, and I think that's really cool. That I was, because I'm still doing it. And I'm here talking to one of my favorite guitar players, musicians, because I'm still doing it. So, yeah, man, that's where it started.
That's
I would say.
And another question I had, because again, I know some of your answers, but not all. Your favorite drummers, your most influential drummers, maybe 10 of them, if you want.
Man.
That's a hard question, but
I mean, it's not that hard. I mean, I listen to you gravitate towards certain people.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that guy has a new thing. Like it's like, let me go hear that. And Unearthed Ed Blackwell.
Oh.
I'm gonna go. So there's certain I'm not the type of musician. If I notice that I'm doing somebody's lick, I try to flip it or stop doing it. If I can't flip it, I just won't do it. And luckily my mind is maybe too fast for my own self sometimes, but it works fast enough that it's not that I'm like censoring myself, but I don't want to come across as a sum of parts, obviously, because none of the musicians I like, it took me years to understand that when Chico showed me how to do a shuffle, that Elvin Jones was doing like the Papa Joe shuffle. When he would go boom, spock, boom, boom, spock, boom, boom. I'm like, that's Papa Joe Jones. Like I didn't know. I just thought it was his cool backbeat thing he did. So everyone's coming out of something, right? But top 10, Chico,
Yeah.
number one. I mean, that was like my grandfather. He called me his son on stage. Like his drums are in my house.
Oh,
His cymbals are set up right now. It's like he's sitting behind me.
he
um,
he is there.
he's there. Elvin for sure.
Yeah.
Ed Blackwell for sure.
Any notable albums from those three?
Um, from Chico, because I know him so well, it's like one of your albums. I wouldn't be able to tell you which one I like better.
Yeah.
It's so personal at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
But with Elvin, it's got to be like, well, it might be surprising. I love A Love Supreme,
Yeah.
but some of the 70s records of Elvin, like what's the one? Is it Live at the Lighthouse?
Yeah.
Is that the one?
Yeah.
With
With Jan.
this one? No, this one has Steve Grossman
Steve.
on it.
Yeah.
Man, I'll send you the record. I'll send you the name of it. It's insane because Elvin at that point had his style evolved
Yeah.
into something totally different, man. I mean, it was like A Love Supreme at its most intense. Like, but he just stayed there. And it's like it's beautiful. So that record a lot. That trio with Joe Farrell and Jimmy Garrison.
Oh.
But man, anything, once again, it's like when you listen to something so much, there's not as someone who's been as influential as Chico or Elvin or Ed Blackwell, I would say. And you could say that's jazz influences, but it all sounds like the same stuff in a way. I hear so Mitch Mitchell, of course,
Yeah.
and Nick Mason, of course,
Yeah.
Keith Moon and John Bonham,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Zigaboo for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, come on, man. I'm like, I listen to him and I'm like, no one can do that. I'm a sloppy drummer a little bit, but like Zigaboo, that's how he plays, but it's together. It's like Elvin. It's like how Chico played. Ed Blackwell was loose. I think his technique was a little more precise, but it was still super loose. He was still breathing through every beat. So like, but I love drummers that have the looseness. It sounds like they're going to mess up, but they don't. That's my favorite kind of drumming. So I don't know how many that is now, about 8.
It's whatever you want.
Papa Joe
Jones.
The drums, that double record that Chad Taylor turned me on to that 20 something years ago.
Wow.
It's an instructional record from Papa Joe.
Wow.
Yeah.
To hear that.
And Sonny Greer, because Duke Ellington, I would say, is probably my favorite musician. And that drumming that he did is it doesn't even make sense, man. I don't even know where he got those ideas from. And that was early. That's like, we're talking 30s.
Yeah.
So, and that's who influenced Chico. So that's what made Chico want to play drums, was Sonny Greer. And he actually got to sit in with Duke Ellington because Sonny Greer, he used to have that big tower. He would get on top of it. And Chico loved it because he said it looked like a drum store. So he evidently he fell off of that thing one time. Wow. And so he couldn't do the gig. So Chico got the gig. But I think that's like a pretty good, people always are like, oh, your energy kind of reminds me of Keith Moon. I'm like, yeah, I listen to a lot of Keith Moon. That urgency that he has to like just get around the drums, man, even if it's maybe not the right moment to do it.
Yeah.
But these are classic moments in the end because they weren't what you expected.
I listened to, I think I sent it to you as well, Bill Ward interview. And, we've always listened to Black Sabbath.
Oh, totally.
The beginning and always had the discussion, like they're swinging, man. This shit is swinging. And you could imagine big band versions of Black.
I hear that. Yeah. You could totally hear that. Yeah.
And the great thing about this interview with Bill is he was like, he grew up in, the 40s, 50s and loved Gene Krupa. That was, and he like you was talking about all the legends of jazz, but you mentioned Keith Moon, you mentioned Mitch Mitchell, you mentioned John Bonham, you mentioned Nick Mason. They were all influenced by jazz, right?
Yeah.
And by those drummers that you mentioned prior, like
I mean,
Ed Blackwell and people like that.
Exactly. My first favorite drummer, though, can't forget, is Stuart Copeland.
Yeah.
He was my first favorite drummer. I just tried to emulate him as much as I could. And it's only that some other musicians have come along that I've, like, I guess you could say, studied. I just listen to their music a lot.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, mechanically, you don't, it's not, I can do it. I can hear what people are doing, but I don't want to know, like, I don't want to know the magic, what's behind the curtain
Yeah, yeah.
necessarily. Because some of the teachers that I had were like Dennis Charles, another favorite drummer who I had contact with a lot. And Dennis, played with Cecil Taylor and, would be considered like a free jazz drummer, but he could totally swing. He had a very interesting swing. It was very straight. It's like ding, 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 ding. Man, but it was swinging. And he told me one time, play the cymbal. What did he say? He either told me, I read an interview with him, but he said, play the cymbal and then write your ABCs with your left hand. So I'm doing ding, 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 and I'm going ding, 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 ding. Here's an A, right? Here's a B. And that's how you get your shapes that you can do with your left hand. So this is very different than someone saying, well, you could play the triplet starting on the second beat. Then you can play the triplet starting on the third beat. Like, no, this is just a totally different way to make music. And then what it did for me is like, okay, that lets you do anything you want. You could just get through any sort of permutation that you're hearing.
Yeah, yeah.
Versus like, because you're never going to practice all of them, right? So you want to be ready to play them no matter what. So there's another way to practice. And I think that is how I practice, is more like what Dennis said to do. Do your ABCs with your left hand while you play the ride cymbal. There you go. Nothing's going to throw you off now.
Yeah, and it keeps you in the moment. You're not thinking, really, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think the idea of when you play or improvise is you can't really be thinking about what you want to do or what's going to happen. You just have to be present and doing it. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you're thinking, by the time you think about what you want to do, you've already missed it.
Something else already happened.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't think too much.
Present.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like Chico used to say about a lot of things. I'd say, hey, should I play 2 and 4 on the hi-hat? Only if you have to. And what that meant was, as a bass player, if they can't keep time, you might need to give them something, right? Or how do I tune the drums? He said, let the room tune the drums.
Ah.
And I never saw him touch those drums except if there was a really weird overtone that was going to maybe get in the way of the music.
Wow.
He'd like ding, one little turn. Man, you don't see musicians do this. They're always like, well, everything has to be this. The tom should be these notes, and I think that's why we have these originals, man. They weren't. I mean, I literally heard Roy Haynes say with in an interview with Chico and Jeff Watts and some really just a nice little panel discussion. They asked Roy Haynes, what do you think about rudiments? And he, to a certain extent, he said, if that's what I thought about, I wouldn't be Roy Haynes.
Dude.
So just don't find your own technique. And then my thing has always been, am I hurting myself? Like I got a lesson from Pete Retzloff, who's Drummers Collective, excellent drummer. He showed me some stuff and I'm like, man, I'm going to hurt myself. He said, everybody sounds good till they're 55 and then their chops start to get blown out. So he's I think he's 60 or around there. He's like, do this. And I'm like, man, I've been able to play hard, faster, without hurting myself. So I took a technique lesson, but as far as ideas of what to play, I'd rather find those things. Or if someone like, what did Jackie Liebezeit say? Someone came up to him and said, the man that looked like a wizard, gave him some advice. I'd rather get some of that kind of stuff, So no drum lessons for me, other than like how not to hurt myself.
Yeah.
Try something, That's kind of where I'm at, right, with learning in that way.
Well, I'm wondering if this might be a good time to play Bush Hog, a track, new Orion Tango, and then
please,
and then after that we can talk about the new album and stuff like that. But it gives everybody a chance to hear your drumming in this situation from this new album.
Can I hide under my desk while it's playing?
No.
Wow. They sound good.
It was great to listen with you.
Yeah, totally.
Like the first time we heard it together.
Dude, love it.
Yeah, what occurred to you listening to that back right now? Like what could you say about that recording or that performance or any of it?
I like that some of the stuff like you got to a higher level of sound with your guitar, and then I opened the hi-hat, but it happened right at the same time. So I don't even know who did it, but it was perfect. There was no signal that we were going to a new section, but we kept shifting together to new sections, which I think is one beautiful thing about this group, because like we have a duet where we can kind of be more experimental, and
Yeah.
this one, like we hit hard a lot. I heard like some Noi vibes in there from me, playing that same beat, but like, and there weren't a lot of drum fills, but like we were just changing. You, me, and Barry are just changing at the same time, which is really beautiful.
For people that don't know about Orion Tango, that's from the new album, The In Between, and the whole basis of Orion Tango is that this group totally improvises. We don't actually write anything out or bring ideas in. We just play live in the studio, and the compositions happen. And I think this, as you were saying, this is like a great example of what we do when we play. Like you, me, and Barry Meehan on bass. We have this ESP that happens when we play. Like we just know we can almost hear the next part coming sometimes. And this track we absolutely did, and we would shift at the same time. I don't know if we could have, written that piece. It just happened live on the floor. And that's the other thing about this record. And all the records, there's no overdubs. Just us playing live
and no rehearsal. We just sit down and play like every time.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a overall concept, I think, like
Sure.
of trying not to, because I can hear it. I know what I'm doing. Sometimes when I'm playing these beats, I'm actually hearing drum fills that I'm not playing. That gives it sort of that energy that something's happening, but I don't want to like, I don't want to do that. I want it to be more like a song,
Absolutely.
So because you guys are playing all these beautiful melodies, man. Like Barry has an electric bass concept. It reminds me of like Jimmy Garrison on
Wow.
Upright, where there's always a line going on. He's not just like, oh, I'm a bass player. He does the bass player thing too at the same time, which is why I think it's so beautiful. Like he's like, okay, well, here's a melody for you. I'm going to repeat that a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to move to this melody. But those melodies are always bass lines. Like they are effective as a bass line.
Oh yeah.
But they're also like a melodic idea. And it's really cool, man.
Yeah.
It does that.
Yeah, I think that's such a great example of Barry's playing. What he does when he's in that zone. And he said, we've had this discussion. We have to talk to him too. But we've had this discussion about the role of a bassist in a band like this. And he's like, man, you're just flying out over the edge of the cliff, and Jeremy's over there. And he goes, I've got to find something in the moment that holds all this shit together. And he does. It's I think we all feel a great challenge and responsibility in the moment to bring the best shit we can. And it's amazing to hear what occurs when we play together. The chemistry of this band is insane, and the friendship of this band is fantastic. So
yep. And we're all feeling I know that I place the beat depending on what day it is. I might place it a little ahead, a little behind, whatever. And we all feel it in different places, but we're consistent with it. And I just, Ken McIntyre, Makana McIntyre used to say, it's okay for everyone you don't want to lock up. That's something that people always talk about, and that's not always the best thing. But it's cool if you play behind the beat and I play in the middle and Barry plays on top or whatever. As long as we stay there, it actually makes the groove really wide.
Yeah.
But you got to stay where you're at, though. You don't want. So it's like really cool. I was listening to us and I'm like, man, we're feeling it in different places, but we all obviously have the same one in our head.
Yeah.
We know where that is.
Very interesting. And the fact that all this is happening real time, like I still remember that song in particular, recording it and coming up with like that kind of near the end, that kind of uh I don't know what the word would be. It's like a riff, but it's just sliding around. There's a tonal center, but it's really just sliding around. Um, all the tonal centers at the same time,
Mhm.
and I felt that so deeply in the moment, and I had no concern that you and Barry wouldn't feel that. It was just like this was happening. It was there happening. It was unfolding, and you're just like ga 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 ga, and bang, and you were just in that, and so was Barry. And it's
Mhm.
like that's a real band.
I like that he started it as like a almost like Watermelon Man, like Headhunters.
Oh, at the beginning,
Dun, dun,
it's a total fake
dun,
out because
dun,
it's like,
dun.
yeah, you don't know where this tune is going to go.
It didn't go where you expected from the top, which was cool. And I think that's a conscious choice, like to like where it could go.
Yeah,
So why don't you go somewhere else? You got to, there's so many ways you can combine rhythms, and you don't need to do the same. There's no need. Melodies, yeah, none of this stuff has to be done the same way twice.
yeah.
So I like that. And it's cool because with you guys, if whatever I do, you're always going to be there, and whatever, and vice versa. So when you take off, we know Barry and I know you're taking off. So okay, let's focus is over here. So it's like a spotlight that's moving. Like somebody's operating the spotlight.
Yeah,
We
but
don't know where it's going to go, but when it lands on somebody, everyone else goes, "Oh, the spotlight's over there," and that's important.
one of the things I wanted to say about this particular record is that Brian Boland mixed and mastered it,
Yes, he did.
and, uh, the thing that he did, was he really brought us all out and balanced us, and to me, that made the whole recording because I can hear all the details of your drumming and hi-hat work, and I can hear all the lines that Barry's doing, and how all of that collides together, how we collide together, and it's just like, wow, what an amazing sound.
He's amazing. I mean, thinking about how we recorded that, we were very close to each other in that room.
Yeah, yeah.
It does not sound like that. That's Brian Boland, though. I mean, he can mix anything, man. He can mix I don't even know, man.
Well,
AM radio.
I always tell him this too. I said, when someone sends you some multi-tracks to mix, they're really getting a bonus because he's not just an engineer or a producer or whatever. He has a whole aesthetic. It's the Brian aesthetic, and
Yeah.
you're always going to get that extra vibe,
Mhm.
and with this record, like obviously we played all this material live, but he's like the fourth member of the band to me.
That's right.
He really, really brought this record out, and I'm so excited about the album. It's one of those records. Here it is again for those
Yay.
who are looking for it. Um, it's out finally, and I'm really excited that we can share this finally with everybody. Our third record, you know. And Brian mixed it, and it just sounds so great. And you know, I hope everybody gets to check it out and hear it,
It
you know,
was done right where you're sitting.
right where I'm sitting. Yeah.
You have one of your home studio is my like model for what I want to have. I'm like every time I'm looking at my spot, I'm like, doesn't look like Tim's yet, but I'm getting closer.
Yeah, it's a magic room though, and so many great records have been made down here. And
Yep.
it's just we set up in a circle and record, and there's a lot of bleed, in all the microphones, but somehow it's beautiful. It all
Mhm.
connects it together really well. And our first album, was that done here as well? I think so. The debut album was done here, but the Apple of No was done at WXPN,
Mhm.
which is up at NPR now, by the way. Did you know
Yep.
that? Yeah,
Yep. I did see that. That's amazing.
yeah.
Yep.
So Orion Tango NPR sessions, check that out um, when you get a chance too.
Yes, please do.
But man, I have a couple other questions for you.
Okay.
One of the things that we touched upon this a little bit, but from my point of view of working with you, in an improvisational setting, it's the chemistry of the players that make it what it will become. And I know that when, you know, people ask me and students ask me like, how do you improvise? How do you start? How do you begin? And I'm like, oh, you know, you just start, you know, you make
Mhm,
a sound, you make a noise, you make a long tone, or the drummer might suggest something, the bass player might play something, but a sound begins. And one of the things I've noted working with you over the years, and I've worked with a lot of amazing players. I've been blessed to play with a lot of different people, but one of the things that I love about you is your intuition, your intuitive approach to drumming. I don't think I would ever suspect what you'll play when I'm
mhm,
playing with you. I might be feeling something in one way or another, but you always will surprise me, and I love that. And um, you always bring exactly what the music needs in my mind, you
mm,
know. And but it's filled with surprise, and also it changes. And that's one of the things I also love is like at some point in the music you might come in with a whole different thing that flips the music and puts it into a whole other space,
mhm.
which I love. And you know, it's like, as you were saying earlier, every drummer comes from a different place, and you've been down here on many recording sessions over 20 years time, you know. And one of the things I always noticed about you is you'd come in, there'd be the drum kit, whatever shape it was in, you would just hit it, and if it needed some attention, you would mess with it, but generally, that's cool. I'm gonna check this out. And you
Mhm.
have this great ability, I think, to just deal with whatever you have in front of you and make music with it. And I've always appreciated that so much, you know. So I just wanted to say that really
Thanks.
firstly. And it's such a blessing to be able to work with you anytime there is an opportunity, and hopefully there'll be an opportunity soon.
There will.
You know.
I'm giving myself a dose of insulin. This is my life. This is real right here.
This is real life.
Insulin pump. Hello.
All right.
I got a little alert from it. I'm like, okay, I did not take enough earlier. Now I'm good.
Okay, good.
Um, well, Tim, like you have to. I don't know if you're asking me about any thoughts I might have on improvisation.
I am.
You have to. You just got to make a sound. You know, and then you have to be open to the other sounds that are being made around you. So like I've had a lot of amazing teachers um, on the bandstand.
Yeah.
And I remember I used to play with this brilliant pianist named Andrew Bemke,
Mm.
and he was like, if I'm doing something and you try to put your idea in there, if I don't pick up on it, don't keep forcing it.
Yeah.
Like it's so if we're in a state of like full communion, like I feel like when we play with OT, it's always like, okay, whatever happens, nothing's going to throw the music off. So you do have to kind of just be willing to put something out there, but you also have to be willing to change that to something else. And that's just from a starting point of improvisation. Once you get in it, then you have to make some choices, like,
Yeah.
do I want to steer this a different direction for a second? If you're doing something that's like where you're really into it, I might not want to go there. You know what I mean? I have to be conscious of everything,
Yeah.
and it comes down, then it becomes like orchestration, I feel like, in
Absolutely.
arranging,
Yeah.
because an arrangement can happen on the spot. We did that on that tune. You do 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 do. You started doing that, and it was like, okay, this is a whole new section now. So this needs to be something totally different. That other groove is gone, and you have to also be willing to forget what you just did, leave it behind, but then maybe reference it later. So there's a lot that goes on and off in your head, and you have to empty your data banks, and then but then you might have to like an old hard drive recover something. So but I think in the end it really comes down to not to reference Chico again. He never let us call his group a band. He's like, it's not a band, it's an orchestra.
Ah,
And if you see it that way,
I love that.
now we're like, where do I fit into this? Do I need to play here? No, I don't. And if I'm not hearing anything, then I shouldn't be playing anything. So I have a few, I think, things that are just inside of me about improvisation that come out naturally. And that's definitely one of them. Am I hearing anything? you know, because I'm not going to play unless I'm hearing something. and I'm hearing it while I'm playing it. And that becomes something that can we really you don't even know how it's happening, obviously, but it's definitely happening. But it is about like it's all about the listening, man. And it's about sound too. I think that's um, you know, being, you said you could get on the drum set no matter what condition. I used to watch Chico play with a shoehorn, counting off tempos or playing a shuffle, and it sounded good, man. I was like, I could just groove to that. Like, get your guitar out, man. We could play to that. So yeah, it's a lot, man. But in the end, I think it's orchestration and on the spot. Like they say, uh, it used to be like free jazz. Now I'm in that scene a lot, and I think everybody's sort of, including myself, calling it spontaneous composition.
Yeah.
So that's more than just playing random notes. That's like I'm playing them, and I'm also kind of trying to turn it into something.
Yeah.
And I
And
think you play that way too.
yeah, and that the Bush Hog track that we just heard definitely has all of that.
Hmm.
It's totally arranging. The arrangement is happening in the moment. The orchestration is happening in the moment. So many things are happening all at the same time. It's a lot. It's a lot to grapple with in a way. When you look back at it
Yeah,
in the moment, you can feel all those things. It's all happening at that moment, and it's an astounding thing. That's why I love improv so much, because you never know what's going to happen. We didn't know that song was going to come out
nope.
like that day. It was just down here experimenting, really, and that showed up.
And
So,
there's some references that we share, I think, that come out, and I think that that's maybe the history part of it that we have with the music.
hmm,
And if I do something, you might think of something that makes sense with it naturally, because I think we went. I mean, if I had to compare it, I'm like that sounded like Black Sabbath or something at the end. And Barry, of course, that's his favorite band.
yeah,
He's like,
pretty
"Doo,
much.
doo, 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 doo," and I'm like, "Yeah, okay, okay, like, do goo 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 goo. Like, he's leaving me a space to do a big drum fill. Like, I knew what that was. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But when you don't discuss it, it's just like, I'm okay with influences coming out.
Hmm.
It's just I don't want them to be acknowledged before they happen. You know what I mean? So it's like, let's not do a Black Sabbath style tune. Let's just play, and
Yeah.
maybe that vibe comes out because we all love Black Sabbath. No doubt about it. And we all love Zeppelin, and we all love Ornette Coleman. There's another track where we play some free jazz.
Yeah.
It's like we have all kinds of vibes going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but once again, we didn't talk about any of this stuff. We all listen to different stuff. We're always sharing records with each other. Have you heard this? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
Barry's like, "Do you know Hawkwind?" I'm like, "I don't really listen to Hawkwind. I'm gonna start." I miss them for some reason. You know what I mean? And then that might bring us closer together. But once we get to these points where we've been listening for so long, I think we all have our own sort of, we have our own concept at this point.
Yeah.
Especially me at 45 years old, I better have something to say.
Yeah.
That's me, like,
Well, and I also think at this point too, like our influences or our inspirations may be better. Um, if those things come out, they still don't sound like what we think they sound like in our heads. Oh, that's
no.
this or that's this, because it's still us.
Hmm.
You can't really get close to the original product. I don't
No.
think.
And nor do I want to. But if you're gonna, like I say, about Chico, show me a shuffle. It's like, man, that's that Papa Joe influence, man, is there for Chico. It's there for Elvin Jones, and these are two of the most original drummers that have ever lived. And they were influenced by somebody. They heard that, they heard that pocket that he had. And those riffs, man, those are Black Sabbath played riffs, man.
They did.
And that's another thing Chico told me one time. He said it's no different than jazz.
Yeah,
They're playing riffs, we're playing riffs.
that's it.
Like we
That's
might be making up riffs on the spot, which is I think really hip,
yeah, yeah.
you know. But so did Ornette Coleman, man. You hear him play something, you'd be like, wow, that was another song. You could just write something off of that, like
Man, I listened to our duo album recently in the car. It's called Convergence,
hmm.
and that was done in 2018, I think, right?
I think so, yeah.
Believe so, and in New York. And what are your memories of like our duo language? what comes up in that improvisational setting that's different than OT, for instance?
Oh, we've done some good stuff too. We did the with the dancers.
Yeah,
That was amazing.
that was amazing.
That last one we did.
Yeah,
And where was that?
that was here in Philly,
It was in Philly. It was a
uh,
big concert.
in Masher Space.
Man, that was that was amazing. I mean, I think that with that,
I think I have a recording of that somewhere.
it's it takes me out of having to play any kind of groove at all. Which I don't have to do that with Orion Tango, but I think we also see ourselves as a power trio.
Yeah,
That's probably the only thing that's mentioned is
yeah,
that. And so with the other stuff, I can bring an iPad and do Sunvox. I could just play the floor for a minute if I want to. Um, these are the things that make the other stuff more interesting. Being able to do that, I think,
yeah,
having the opportunity to explore, sounds, and that's kind of what I'm able to do with you. And it's like I said, one of your one of the things I admire is your ability to create these spaces with layers,
mm,
and I get to kind of experiment with that myself, which
yeah,
is
yeah.
really cool. Um,
I remember, that gig too. You had a turntable, and you on the fly were playing like a 45 into a sampler and mutating that, and then we were playing off of that for a while.
yeah, yeah,
Things like that live. I think you did some of that with our trio with David Torn as
I did. I was finding little pieces that were so with you and Torn, for instance, and with you alone, I would feel this way. I'm like, oh shit, I better bring some electronic,
well.
genius to this because I'm here with these dudes, and I'm like, I got to do something. I don't want to just be like, oh, the drummer's here, like. So I actually I ran that turntable through like the hottest effects I could, and then I just was touching the needle. Wherever I touched it, there's some music there. So then there were notes
Yeah.
in there. So then and it was all random. I didn't know that 45 enough to like know here's where I'm at. So I was letting that just be what it was, and then that would
Cool.
inspire like maybe me to do something on the drums or whatever.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I find it so interesting too, like in the moment of improv and the heightened awareness that we're listening to everything that's happening, but with something like that where there's a sound source and randomly you're dropping the needle and grabbing a note, and how much is actually there for you to play off of or to influence, and maybe you don't even notice the record at all,
Mhm.
as far as what it is, but it's like what's coming out, these
Yeah, totally.
little bits of pieces of sound, that just feeds into what we're doing,
Yeah, it's easier to be more like how we can shift a lot with Orion Tango. It's actually easier to do that with the other thing because there's not really any expectation. Like if there's three instruments and there's a guitar, bass, and drums, you're like, okay, when are they going to get into that groove, or something? We really have so much space to do whatever we want, and especially and the dancers are improvising,
Yeah,
so they're not expecting anything in particular. So yeah, that's a beautiful gig because it can just develop over time as long as it needs to.
yeah, yeah.
You know.
Well, I love working with dancers, and I think being in a band is obviously an amazing thing. But when you add the visual element of dance and that circle of language and connection that happens there, it keeps fueling the music, and we fuel
Mhm.
the dance, and vice versa. And it might be my most favorite thing to do, really, and to be in a duo situation with you doing it. We used to do that with Manfred as
We
well.
did. Oh, rest in peace.
You know,
Ugh.
who
Yeah.
I'll eternally miss.
Yes.
Um, yeah, and, those were just amazing times because Manfred was all about improvisation and what would happen, or giving the dancers, like, maybe just a very loose framework or an idea, and
Mhm.
boom, the things that would occur. It taught me so much,
Yep.
and I think we both learned a lot there working with Manfred.
Absolutely. And I've actually been able to do more work with dance. I mean, I do the thing with KJ Holmes. Love is
Absolutely.
power. Love is power.
Yeah.
From a Dr. King quote. Man, it's an amazing thing just to be a drummer and then just be listening for music in the movement.
Yeah.
she doesn't really want me to look, really. She doesn't want it to be like, "Oh, I'm doing a, you know, like, she doesn't want that.
Yeah, I've
Uh,
I've learned that too, sometimes I'll follow a dancer almost literally, when I play music, and sometimes that is really awesome.
mhm. You
But
can, yeah.
but usually it's the opposite, you
Mhm.
it's do something different that they can do that too, or maybe tie it together somehow, but
I've had some of the best experiences. I did a thing where, because she's pulling me out of the shell of, like, even how I drum.
yeah.
She'll take my drums and oh, she moved my floor tom on one gig. She took it away from my drum kit and moved it across the room. So I was like, "Oh, well, I'll run over and play the floor tom, then I'll run back over the kit, then I'll run back over to the floor tom," that kind of thing. So, like, she's got me doing some things. One of my favorite moments was, and she's brilliant. She works with Matthew Barney. She's in, like, his latest movie. She's like, she got inside of this big wooden box. It was like a pedestal for a sculpture. It was tipped over. She got inside. I'm drumming, and I hear her say, "I'm trapped in the box. I'm trapped in the box." And I'm thinking it was like a metaphor, you know? I'm like, okay, are we all, like, whatever. So then I drum my way over to her and I started drumming on the box. I think I started hearing like a go-go beat or something. I started playing that on there. And then she got out. I tipped the box and she got out. And I was like, wow, that moment was so cool. Trapped in the box. She goes, I really was. I couldn't get out. She had gotten herself in there upside down and she couldn't get out. So luckily I came over. But, like, these kind of moments don't really happen, on a Orion Tango. I haven't rescued
Or
you
any other gig,
from your instrument or anything yet, but so yeah, it's a beautiful thing to have, like, sort of a non. It makes you think very non-traditionally in terms of how you feel about how you make music. I have to, like, I can't do that, like.
Absolutely. And as a result, it just expands your vocabulary,
Yes,
your
yes,
language, which, I've learned so much from dance in the same way, like how I treat my guitar and stuff like that, that I end up bringing that to other gigs,
mhm.
just new language. So that's really exciting.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I feel the same way. That's, yeah, man. That's amazing.
Well, you wouldn't believe that an hour and a half has flown by already, but
Oh, wow. Yeah, I
but
have a daughter I have to pick up from.
I know.
I'm a
And
responsible dad.
this was amazing to see you and to hang and have a chat. And we should definitely do continue this
I
because
would love to.
there's so much to talk about, really. And
Yes.
so just want to thank you for being here and being in my life. Actually, I'm
Thanks, Tim.
glad we get to share
Love always to you,
all of this
Tim.
music and this life that we're swimming through at the
Yes.
moment.
Yes, we are swimming through it, but we are swimming through it.
We are swimming through it.
We
So,
are.
dude, have a great day,
You
and
too.
I will talk to you soon. And for everybody listening, thank you so much for tuning in with Jeremy Carlstedt and myself, Tim Motzer, for Searching for Sparks, Season 2, Episode 1. So we're back at it, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.